It was noontime today in the center of Beijing when a man walked to the middle of the Avenue of Eternal Peace,
All right, welcome back to the Survival and Basic Badass Podcast, Kevin and Chuck. Today, what we're going to talk about, urban survival, basically how to escape the city when things go bad. Turns out, like even the power being out for 4 or 5 days, the city isn't where you want to be. Um, Bad weather, flooding, that kind of thing comes up. The end of the world, that kind of thing comes up. The apocalypse. I mean, it hasn't happened yet, but actually, it happens in other countries all the time. We're just not as used to it in
hmm
America as you know,
Yeah, I mean, it happened in New
as the
Orleans
rest of
a
the
couple of
world.
years ago.
Happened in New Orleans. Happened in Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico, there wasn't a lot of places to escape to,
No,
but
turns out.
it can end badly. Um, maybe you're in Nepal or whatever, or I don't know. There's all kinds of bad things happening all around the world. I don't know. But the bottom line is you need to have a plan. 80% of the population live in some kind of city and urban area. And, I guess we all make bad choices. Like I
hmm
wouldn't want to live in the city, but it turns out that's where the fun and excitement is. So I
That's
kind of
true.
get it if you want to be honest. Like, why even be alive if you're not going to have a good time? And the party's in the city.
hmm
Now, it turns out country folk know how to party too, but it's just different.
It's different.
But yeah, step one is move to the country. That's my understanding. But anyway, so with that, there are basic things you can do for a reasonable level of preparedness, and this may buy you time if things go bad in the city. And so what kind of things do we stockpile, Kevin? Like what would you have if you lived in a high rise?
Well, I mean, I would have a basic emergency kit. You want to have food and water stocked up, and the truth is, even in a small apartment, it doesn't take a lot of space to store some basic food. Freeze dried stuff takes up almost no space. Dried beans, dried rice, um, and then they have a million different types of freeze dried meals. Ready to eat type things. And it doesn't take up that much space to have a week's worth of food. Water is a little bit different, takes up a lot of space, and you go through it real fast.
Turns
And
out
if
you even
you
needed to get rid of the
are
poos.
yeah, and
So
if you're on the 10th floor, you might not have enough pressure pretty quickly to actually have, water coming out of your faucet, your shower, your
yeah,
toilet.
yeah.
Um,
A
but
lot of the buildings have the tower on top, but
they do.
it's not that big. And that's
hmm
the thing. So they pump the water up and then it kind of has a little reserve and gravity back down. But like Kevin said, when you're sharing with all those people, it runs out quick.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So another thing that you definitely want to have, if you're in the city that doesn't take up enough space, is a good first aid kit, a good stocked medicine cabinet. I see a lot of people that run these uh, they have these first aid kits that have like gauze and antiseptics and all sorts of stuff, but they don't have like band-aids. Like you slice your finger open and you don't necessarily need like a giant gauze pack and tape and all that sort of stuff, but you don't want to get an infection. Having
yeah,
like just band-aids also
it
is a good idea.
it kind of goes both ways. What I do is in my all my vehicles, actually, everyone, I have a trauma bag, which
hmm
I mean, we're talking like IFAC size, right? Not
right.
like I'm not like EMT or something.
hmm
I have like tourniquet and the quick stuff, like you're saying, like some gauze to pack a wound, some, a chest seal, things like that, right? That would come up in that emergency.
hmm
But then I have another one that's exactly what you're saying. That's band-aids, that's triple antibiotic, that's, your things for your day-to-day nonsense to
right,
prevent
your boo-boo
infection.
bag.
Yeah, for the boo-boos. And you need to be ready for that. And that's the way to go is to have both. Now they can be together. I just, when I'm dealing with an emergency, I want to be able to find what I need quickly, right? With the
Mm-hmm.
tourniquets and the, with the trauma bag. But you need the day to day, and that way, the one kind of stays safe and the other, you can get it. But anyway, what else would you have stockpiled? Now, well, actually, before you move on here, one of the things that concern me is I was just listening to an audiobook, one of the, all the time, whatever, it's what I'm doing. And they were trying to escape out of DC, and they were heading down to North Carolina to, get out to the country because the government was after them. And mind you, these were government people, but
Mm-hmm.
the coup in the White House,
Right.
and so obviously, that could happen anytime. And so they're heading down to North Carolina, and they hit like a sporting goods store, or actually they hit a Walmart, and
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, there's freeze dried food, there's whatever, and they're buying this stuff. And just like you said, freeze dried food, it's lightweight, it doesn't take up a lot of space. But what's going through my head is, yeah, but where are you going to get the water for all that? Like, you have all
Exactly.
the dry stuff, but now you're like, I'm kind of feeling like if you have some cans with some moisture, you're like kind of dual purpose there,
Right.
but so that's just something to think about. But as we've seen, you can slide, your thing of 24 water bottles under the bed, have a couple of those set aside, or a couple of gallons, I mean, you got to think of how you can utilize the storage, watch a little Martha Stewart or something. I don't know who the new girl is that people pay attention to, but
I think it's that. I think it's
Joanna Gaines.
Henry's girl,
Who
Megan,
is it?
doing the new
Who is it?
uh, Prince Henry.
Oh, yep.
Doing the
Because
most.
that's like, it was first. Yeah, it was first like Martha Stewart. Then we had Joanna Gaines, and now
Mm-hmm.
we're moving on. Okay, so I'm two generations
Yeah.
back in my preparedness, but that
Mm-hmm.
happens. So, all right. So, what else would you have?
Well, a good toolkit, and I think most people in general have like the little toolbox that they keep under their sink that's got a screwdriver and a pair of pliers or something. But I mean like a real toolkit,
Yeah,
And one of the things that's under, I don't think that a lot of people have it, and it doesn't even come up that often unless you're a crazy person or an asshole like me. Is bolt cutters, the big ones. You have to
yeah,
cut padlocks all the time. You know what I mean? Or at least if you're getting into shit, and it's real easy. You got a 3-foot bolt cutter is just, no problem, right through that padlock.
exactly.
One of the other things that I think is a good idea to keep either in your vehicle or in your house is basic camping supplies, tent, sleeping bag, that sort of stuff. If you have to evacuate, that would be a great thing to have in your vehicle if you're trying to get out and you don't have a set destination. You're just trying to get out of the city.
Right.
It's a good idea. Um, and then basic things like flashlights, basic lighting, headlamps. I like the headlamps. I like flashlights too. Get the good ones though. Don't get the
Yeah.
the 395 one that they have at Walmart that's made out of plastic.
I got to tell you, I got this at work. They bought us all some kind of magnet Milwaukee like foldable like LED super bright light that like light up the room, and they charge off a USB thing and that kind of stuff. I think they intended for me to use it at work, but they said, here you go. So it's on my refrigerator. And I got to say, power goes out, whatever, I'm bam, I'm living the life. Something premium like that. I also have a couple of like those LED charging like light that look like a pen, but like have the full bar. And there's some cheaper ones and there's some better ones. I think mine is in the like $40 range because my company bought it. So it is probably fancier. But those are pretty awesome to have, especially something, you can magnet on the stuff and it's just useful all the time. And then, you know, whatever. Plus, like at work, I'm like Batman utility belt and I have those, like fancy heavy battery lights anyway. So,
Hmm.
CR 124 or whatever those,
Yeah.
but
Another
uh,
thing that now having an emergency kit when you're in the city is a great idea. Um, and all these things you can keep in your emergency kit, in a certain spot designated. Now, one thing that is underlooked a lot is basic hygiene stuff.
Oh,
You know,
like toilet
soap,
paper?
disinfectant,
Oh,
toilet paper is a great idea. I mean, everyone knows that when there's an emergency, toilet paper goes first, right? Um, but basic hygiene is why do I need hygiene? I've got bars of soap in the closet. I've got shampoo and set up in the shower. I'm all set with that sort of stuff.
yeah.
But if you have to bug out, if you have to get out of the city, having some soap, having some basic hygiene stuff with you is a great idea because you know your hands get dirty fast when you're in an emergency situation, and keeping your hands clean, especially if you got to treat a wound or even just getting ready to eat. You don't want
Yeah.
to be shoveling food in your face with your bare hands, when they're filthy, and then next thing you know, you got diarrhea for a week.
So hand sanitizer, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing, being able to wash up without a lot of extra water, that kind of stuff is always a plus. Something to think about. Uh, and so moving on. Now, the next thing would be, what if you have to get out of the city? What if it's not going to work out staying there? Well, one of the ways to do that is to be a little preemptive and kind of know your escape routes, right? Know where you are, know where things are going to clog up. If you think the tunnel or whatever, like I always think in New York City when I think escape out of the city. And the problem with New York City is it's an island and
Right.
there are kind of choke points at getting out of there. And that's the big thing. So, but a lot of cities are like that where you have kind of choke points and bottlenecks of how people can get out. Um, I know Atlanta has like a big circle around it, and you got to kind of get outside of that beltway that, to
Mm-hmm.
get to freedom. And it's all about, having a plan. So you need to think of the best route on foot, the best route on bike. New York City, do I know how to get to the harbor if the bridges and the tunnels are kind of shut down? Is there a way to get out on boat?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there's a nice sailboat or something that you can borrow. Maybe you have a friend that has the boat there that you've been eyeing every time you go out for your morning run. And he's like, hey, whatever. But being aware of what's available to you beforehand can buy you so much.
Right. So
The
mapping out
Yeah,
evacuation routes is a good idea. You know, I know that when they have mandatory evacuations, that's probably too late,
yeah,
to go by normal means, just getting in your car, packing it up with everything you need, and getting on the highway and bumper to bumper traffic for the next, you know, 10 hours. Not the best way to go about it. You want to go with like a voluntary evacuation, really. You want to see that shit coming and get out early,
right.
right? If you
That
can.
that is one of the things as a prepper is just paying attention to the news and what's going on in the political climate and the tensions with foreign countries, things like that. Be aware because a lot of times you can kind of predict what's coming.
Hmm.
You know
Right.
when things are bad, like, hey, it'd be a good time to go make a vacation to the country for a week.
Yeah.
You don't know.
Yeah. One thing to keep in mind is basic stuff. Transit hubs. The train stations, the bus stations. You don't want to be in those places when everybody's trying to get out. But
Not
knowing
exactly.
they are, if you're stranded in a city and knowing where they are is a good bet. Because there's going to be all sorts of stuff there. There's going to be taxis. There's going to be buses. There's going to be all sorts of stuff going on there. There are also like shelter areas that you might want to map out. If you haven't been able to get out of the city in time, you want to know where the shelters are going to be at. Not a great option. That's not the best option. It's last resort. Um,
China and Moscow have some big underground bunkers that you can,
they
but
do.
they're also, right in the city for those people. So they're
Mhm.
looking out for you. I'm not sure our government has the same plan for you, but
Well, I know in Ukraine, one of the big things were the underground train stations, the
yeah,
subways.
Yeah,
And they
absolutely.
had designed those as bomb shelters
Well,
because
New
they were
York did
worried
that
about
originally, and Chicago did that
Europe.
originally, but
Yeah.
yeah.
And a lot of those subway stations are actually bomb shelters. They're not going to help you with, gas attacks or nuclear attacks or some of that stuff, but bombs happen sometimes.
It happens.
You also want to have a plan with your family members. If you have other family members living in the city with you, but that aren't in the same exact, the same building or the same apartment, you want to be able to communicate with them. You want to be able to make a plan with them. Grandma across town might not be able to just hop in her car and make a run for it. You might have to go scoop her up.
Oh,
Aunt Bess, she might not be as mobile as she used to be.
yeah.
And you want to be able to plan for your family members.
Yeah, and that's the best thing is to try and plan ahead, to have
Mhm.
these things, and also to have a set meeting point. If things go bad, knowing where you guys are going to meet up or who's going to go get who. Like, it sucks if you go all the way across town to get to grandma's house and grandma's neighbor already took her and you just wasted all that time and effort. You could have been gone.
Mhm.
You guys need to have a plan of what you're going to do if things go bad.
Yeah.
But like I said, the key is really paying attention to what's going on beforehand and kind of being a little preemptive.
Yeah. So let's talk about situational awareness because
Yeah.
we're kind of touching on that.
Yep.
Um and that's the main thing with situational awareness is being observant, you know, keeping your eyes open. You know who the shitbag is in your neighborhood.
Right.
You know who the asshole is in your apartment complex, the one that's going to be
Mhm.
the problem. You need to be aware of what's going on with the people in your area, especially when you're in a crowded place like a city. Um, you want to stay informed, you know. The radio is a great place for that. You have it in your
Right.
car, despite the fact that I never listen to the radio anymore. Um,
Who turns
in
that
a
on?
situation like this, it's a great idea to just, throw your CDs out, throw your book on tape, turn off your
Yeah.
Sirius, get the local news on your radio and pay attention to it. Um, one of the big things also with situational awareness is just trusting your instincts. Trust your gut.
Mm.
You know, you you get bad feelings around certain people, and you get off-putting feelings in certain places and situations. Trust your instincts. You
Yeah.
know.
Now, the next thing I would say, so say we decide we got like a backpack or whatever, and I'm assuming a lot of people are leaving. Obviously, you want to look as inconspicuous as possible. And by that I mean you want to fit in. You want to go with the crowd, right? So
Hmm.
like a knapsack or something in the city, not too uncommon to have a guy, with a backpack or whatever. And now, again, if you're full on camping frame and whatever, probably a little more conspicuous. You
Yeah.
don't want to look like the guy who has stuff that people want. That's the
Hmm.
big thing. Um, I always like if I'm in the city, you want to blend into the city. It's funny when I was coming up with like thumbnail covers of this, I was like I typed in like stealthy escape from the city or something, and they showed a guy in the city with his car and he had one of those nets over it to help it blend in the forest. Is what AI came up with.
Yeah.
And I'm like, having a net to cover your car in the city is not going to make it not stand out,
Right.
right?
You're not
You got
making
to
it
know.
less
So I'm like,
conspicuous.
you might have missed the mark on that one. And
Hmm.
that's the thing is you need to like you want to look like other city people. So
Hmm.
having a bag that's maybe not hot pink or fun fashion, right?
Right.
Unless everybody's fun fashion, but maybe something like a light blue
Hmm.
or, like a gray
Right.
or a black. Those kind of work. And to be honest, it's more and more common for people to have the mole style bags. I know, we've talked about, I have like a 511 tactical bag that I have that's like blue. I have one sitting right here that I use that this one was like $20 or something. Obviously not 511 tactical for $20, but the one I keep in the car is like light blue and just looks like, but it's like to the point where it's like almost gray and it just blends in, is unnoticeable. That's the kind of thing. But the mole bags, they're not uncommon to have the little, so you can have the function without standing out. I don't think they're a, big thing anymore. But I wouldn't go with like OD green or camouflage or something like that. Because one, you're going to look like, oh, I'm preparedness guy. I have something. You want to look like I grabbed the kids, bag and this is we're heading out like everybody else. I'm in the same boat. I would probably have water and the things that are really going to matter in that bag. But so you need to get out. So you want to fit in. Maybe you have like earbuds in, but you, like Kevin said, you don't want to be listening to stuff. You need to be paying attention. But if you had earbuds in, it just kind of looked like, hey, don't talk to me. Not involved. That might be cool. Having the hoodie, the nondescript, having the hat hung down a little bit. You want to kind of be a little subtle, but you don't want to be. I always felt like if I was going to do something bad in the city, like where I go and move in on something and then want to get away quickly, I would want something really unique and descriptive, like a red ball cap or something like that, or a red sweatshirt. Because I always feel like when people see you, they're like, oh, he had a red sweatshirt. I know, I got it. I clocked that guy. He had a red hat. And I'm wearing that when bad things happen, and then that hat's gone.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I do that. I get 10 feet away. Maybe I even run in the wrong direction of where I'm going to go. And then I ditch that stuff and slip off into something else and go to the plain nondescript, that kind of thing. So
yeah, I think that's also a great tactic for gray man stuff is being able to have clothing that you can discard or swap out. A windbreaker is great for that because it covers your whole torso and you can take it off and pack it into a little pocket in your pants or something.
Yeah.
One of the things that we kind of skipped over, we should go back a little bit, is community building. You want to be able to know, your neighbors, you want to be, on speaking terms with the people that are on your block, in your neighborhood. The guy that runs the bodega, the homeless guys know what's up, man.
It always concerns me that you're so familiar with the homeless community in your area.
Those are my people,
Kevin.
man.
They are your people.
The degenerates, But I had a friend of mine that was telling me that there's a homeless person that lived in their neighborhood, and every time, once a week, she said like the homeless person kind of made her nervous, and so every week she'd get home, on Friday or whatever, and park her car, and she'd give the homeless guy $20 and be like, hey, just keep an eye on my car this week. And that way, he's, she's like his benefactor and he's like watching out for her. And she said one day she came out and all the cars in her neighborhood were fucked up. Like somebody just went through a bat smashing windshields. And he was standing next to her car and she's like, they didn't touch your car, Miss Angela.
Nice.
Saved her a windshield. But, I mean, the guy's looking out for you now instead of being somebody you have to worry about.
That's it. You're always buying them the bottle of malt liquor. All right.
Keep him in Old
See how
English
you roll, Kevin.
And he'll watch out for you.
Yeah. So that's the thing is you want to be like the people around you. That's the whole thing, where just blend in and act like they act. Like, I hate to say it, you don't want to have the pace or the gait that's 20 times or 2 times faster than everybody else. If the crowd's moving, you want to move kind of with the crowd. Now you want to be able to get out of the crowd and not caught up in a big mob, like where it's out of control. Like, you want to be in control. And by that I mean like able to escape, able to get out of the situation, but you want to kind of go with the flow, right? You don't want to be the extreme opposite. Now, I understand maybe you got to go the other direction, but you got to kind of, play it by ear, right? Do the things that you can do. Um, Even before you leave your place, you should know the fire escapes, the different stairways and hallways in your building, know all your exits, know, how to get it, how to get out, I guess is what I mean. Have, a way to, you know, move out of your building where you're not going to be, the easy steps shouldn't become the problem.
Hmm.
That's, I guess, what it comes down to. Uh, don't be on your phone. Now, another thing, depending what you're trying to avoid, maybe there was a coup in your government, like I just talked about in the thing, and all of a sudden you became the enemy number one, right?
Hmm.
And maybe you need to ditch that cell phone. Maybe you don't use the credit cards, but you need to also remember the facial recognition, the cameras everywhere, all this stuff. The world is very connected, and it's not like it used to be. People used to be like, "Oh, I can't use a credit card." That's the least of your problems.
Right.
In the city or whatever, there are cameras everywhere that are going to see you and be aware, and they really can, follow people and see where the heck they're going. And more they can even do it with, your gait and how you walk and how you move. You need to be aware of those things and how to kind of blend in.
Yeah. Take a
um
tip from Luigi Mangione. Remember he shot that guy in the middle of a city street and just walked away, and they lost him for days.
yeah,
What did he just had a hoodie on and one of those N95 masks. And he just walked into the woods in Central Park, switched out his hoodie, ditched the mask, and got on a bike and left. And he just went MIA for almost a week.
yeah, no, that's it. I mean, you need to be discreet, you need to blend. And that's the thing is, if when people first notice you, you're one way and you're able to change into something else, that's gonna,
Hmm.
give you the option. It's a lot harder to cover up than it is to kind of get rid of, like Kevin said, if you're wearing the N95 mask and the sunglasses and the hoodie, when bad things happen, and then all of a sudden you're not wearing a hoodie, you're not wearing the glasses and the whatever. Whereas if you try and go to the guy who's got the hoodie and the whatever, then you kind of stand out more. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Hmm.
Like, think of how you're going to blend in and how you're going to watch and that kind of stuff, how you're going to change. So that's what I got. The other option, I mean, as far as like blending in and escaping and, paying attention, gray man stuff. Another thing you might want to do is if you can move with a show of force, right?
Hmm.
There's other times where you have a group of 10 people that kind of look like hard targets. Maybe that's the way to go to move out, but that's a lot harder to pull off, to be a hard target in the city, because there's kind of always a bigger mob.
Hmm. Right.
That's the danger you run into. All
Yeah.
right.
I think that covers most of my notes. You got anything else you want
No,
to
no,
touch on here?
that's some there. That's it. We're trying to get out. That's the
Hmm.
thing, is you need to focus, you need to have a plan, you need to take actionable steps all the way through, and just be aware. It's like the thinking, and just think, how am I gonna not be out of the norm? Right? And also not putting yourself in a box. By knowing the escape routes, you can wind up not being cornered, and you
Hmm.
should know multiple escape routes. That's the thing. And that's stuff you can do beforehand. Like, to be honest, I mean, that's why they say, like, hey, maybe you should study Krav Maga, learn self defense. Hey, maybe you should carry a firearm. Hey, you should, you know, be a little prepared in life, where you don't become an easy target. When you take a class or two on situational awareness, when you're aware of what's going on around you and you're able to defend yourself or protect yourself, it's going to put you light years ahead of, maybe you don't get so out of shape. Maybe you kind of maintain a level of fitness and health. It is your obligation to take care of your family and protect the ones you love. That's something, maybe you take that stuff seriously. I know we all work hard and get exhausted, and it's like, oh, is there time for, any more? I can't do any more. But it is your responsibility, to take care of things. So I'm
Right.
just saying that's an option. So I
You
would
want?
do that. And we did have a sponsor for this
Oh, that's
episode.
right.
Oh, so that's exciting. I'm going to put the link in the show notes that'll, be able to get you guys there. But basically, I'm going to the sponsor. It's for these pretty badass water bottles. There's a company called Iron Infidel, and they basically make these like 64-ounce water bottles and the cool jug for on the go. And it turns out if you have one, you're like an extra manly man. I'm just saying. You could be a little cooler. Now, you're probably like, ooh, I don't want to spend $60 on a cool water bottle. Maybe you're that guy. But then, wait for it, turns out they have like smaller $39 water bottles. But I looked at the pictures and checked it out, and it turns out that if you're a manly man, you need the big one. And if you're like a fit hot chick, then you need a manly one. So
We're
I
just
don't
going
know.
by the pictures of the models. I like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Check out the notes. And like I said, we got cool things. You want to be tactical? I think we have a way for you to do it. And again, we'll put they have some kind of discounts if you click the link and hook you up. Check that out. We'll put it in the show notes. I try and take care of you guys, get you the deal.
Yeah.
And
One thing
hey, yeah.
One thing I wanted to touch on before we go is tariffs. We all know we've all been
America.
watching the news, big tariffs
America.
going on, America stuff. But there's some stuff you might want to stock up on now if you haven't done it already. Let's run through a list. Coffee is a
Time
big
is ticking. Coffee's going to be
Coffee
expensive.
is going to be going up. Yep. Your basic produce that doesn't come from the United States.
So all of it is what you're saying.
Bananas, mangoes, avocados, all that sort of stuff. I mean, I'm sure we can all function with apples and pears, but
I like apples and pears and oranges. We have those in America.
And peaches. And what else do you need after that?
I actually just planted like 4 peach trees. So
oh yeah, they can be.
I don't
they
even
can
have
be
to worry
tricky,
about it. China, you can't bully me.
That's right.
They weren't selling me peaches anyway. I do grow my own garlic, which the rest of America is getting from China. So turns out I never understood that. Like we grow garlic great, especially in the northern states. Why does all our garlic come from China? Like I never can figure that out. If you look at any powdered garlic, garlic powder, whatever, any of that stuff, it's always China.
Yeah,
China.
it's always powdered garlic with fentanyl in it, I guess. I don't know what.
A little kick. Maybe it's the pick-me-up or the numbing. I guess fentanyl is numbing, right?
Okay. All right.
It doesn't hurt so much anymore now that I have garlic powder. Yeah. They always say, oh, it's good for my joints. And they're like, yeah, it's the fentanyl. That's why you don't.
Yeah, that's right. The other thing is electronics. If you've got a big flat screen TV and you're happy with it, great. If you are thinking about buying one, buy it now.
Oh, it's time. Okay.
Electronics, cell phones.
So I should go to the Megalomart and go check out the flat TVs.
Yeah, if you're in the market, then now's the time to buy.
All right.
So
and now is like in the next 3 days or something, or
the car and the used car, or the new car, both of those things. Now's the time.
Trucks are very expensive right now, so they're kind of iffy. But you gotta think things are coming down. As far as trucks and cars, they're going to come down in the future. So I know you're saying, oh, tariffs, they're going to go up. I think people aren't buying that stuff anymore, and people are scared. They have no money. It's like house prices. I think they're going to come down.
Nobody's buying anything because they can't afford it.
They can't afford it. So, times is hard. But that's what I got. So anyway, questions, concerns, email us at preppingbadass@gmail.com. Show ideas, let us know. Otherwise, I would say stay safe and we will talk to you guys next week.